been a bit for a video, but hopefully people will enjoy this one. I think this is my side quest in Warframe at all times, is just like finding the worst build possible and then trying to make it do something. We're going to go a little bit into the deep end this time though. So rather this being like a build that's like kind of bad, but you know, kind of on the good side, these are just bad builds. So we're going to be focusing specifically on mechanics that just don't do anything, to the point where they literally deal 1 damage in one way or another. So this first version that I'm going to show you comes from a new arcane that we just got. So if you're not familiar with the new arcanes that just got released with the Sirius and Orion update, one of them is this. So secondary cryogenic. So this is what we're going to be focusing on first. If you haven't seen this before, the basic idea is that if you deal a puncture status on a primary target, everybody within 10 meters will get a cold stack. And this goes up all the way to 3 cold stacks in 15 meters. So it's like a good amount of CC, actually. It's actually a pretty decent arcane, in my opinion. And the reason that it's mostly a decent choice is because if you get to 10 cold stacks, it will instantly freeze things. That is not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the other property of this, which I don't think is that obvious unless you're like really familiar with how Warframe works. And that is how statuses are applied. So let me just show this. I'm going to shoot a couple of times and you can see we're getting some puncture statuses here. And you'll notice that we have these cold procs that are also happening on basically everybody nearby, right? So you can see that we have 6 cold stacks here, and it'll cap out at 10 and then kind of freeze them like this, right? So if I had to ask you, how is that getting applied? Your immediate answer might just be like, it just applies the cold stack, and that's kind of true, but there's like another layer there that's not really that obvious, and that's how statuses are applied in general. And usually the case is that it is part of a hit. So these are called hit pointers, or HIT PTRs in the actual game code. And the way they work is they basically carry some information about a target getting hit. In this case, it's basically a hit pointer that says, do a cold proc, do 0 damage to some extent or another. So there's like a lot more details to it than that, but that's kind of the basic idea, right? Is that this is still a hit from a weapon that is applying the cold status. And so what that means is that because there's a hit being applied there, some abilities, some effects will still do something off of that hit. So like on hit, do some damage, or on hit, do, you know, whatever. For the case of Dagath, who I think is a really good example of this, her 3 has an augment that makes her hits with her abilities and weapons proc doom. And so you'll see that if I press 3 here, and then I do this shot, you can see that they're getting these sighs above their head that just kind of do nothing. So this is kind of the first attempt that I made with this, is that I thought, okay, well, maybe if I have this doom effect, I can do something special with it. And this does literally no damage. So important thing here though is that it's proccing it all, right? This is going to lead to some stuff. So the next version I'm going to show with this is Citrine. Citrine has another on-hit effect, and that's actually from her gem. So her gem here, if you're not familiar with how it works, is that if you shoot something with a gun or with her 1, it'll shoot this laser beam of rainbows out and then do a bunch of status procs, right? So it's a really, really good primer. And so what you're going to see here is that when I shoot an enemy while my gem is active and I get that cold proc, you can see that the laser beam will target all of these other enemies too. This is a fixed rate, so it has a 0.5 second delay between each target that it goes to, but it instantly will proc on all of the enemies that are within range of the cold procs, right? So you can kind of see that like this can end up leading to some really like actually useful mechanics. Is you use an on-hit effect to trigger something else, and then that on-hit effect will do something important to you, like kill enemies, right? So hopefully that's kind of like a useful primer for how we're going to be like doing this stuff. So the next step of this is, how can we make the hit do damage, right? Because if this cold proc is doing 0 damage by itself, then maybe there's some on-hit effect that we can trigger, and that on-hit effect will do damage for us, so that we don't have to worry about like the cold proc like not actually doing anything, right? This is kind of how I approach builds in general, is like I look for an effect, and then I look for a chain, and then I use that chain to do something. It leads to really fun builds, it leads to really creative builds, but sometimes it leads to absolutely terrible builds. So let me show you the first variation of this. This is just a basic Saren build, kind of. It's like a persistent setup. It doesn't really matter what the actual mods are here. I just kind of want to show you what this leads to, because it's really, really funny to me. And that is, the cold procs will proc Toxin. And if you were paying attention to the title of this video, it deals 1 damage. All of these Toxin procs are 1 damage. So we can deal 1 damage really, really fast. So this is by far one of my favorite interactions that has shown up in any of the more recent updates. I kind of am always looking for builds that are just so uniquely terrible. And so having one like this that's just so specially like, oh, that's so great. I love that so much. And you can actually probably get this to deal like more than 1 damage, but maybe not with this build. I don't think I have enough strength on here to make this do 2 damage. Oh, no, we did it. We're hitting 2 damage. Great job. So here's another example of a secondary hit ability that you'd kind of expect to work here, but actually doesn't. Zada's Whisper doesn't actually trigger up these cold procs, unfortunately, so we can't do 1 damage with void damage. It's very sad. But there is one other case that does work here, and that is Garuda. So Garuda's 4. If you're not that familiar with Garuda, basically it'll make anything that does a hit proc slash on that enemy. So you can see here that we'll get this little mark above their heads. It's a little bit hard to see just because I have my effects intensity pretty low. But you can see the same effect, right? We're getting slash cold instead of just cold. But it still does 1 damage, and that's what's important. All right, keeping to our theme of pretty useless mechanics, this next one is things that Punchthrough applies to for universal weapon bonuses. So if you've been following my channel for quite a while, you might have seen a Smite Corvex build that I did quite a ways back, where the idea was basically that the old Smite projectiles, the way they worked is they used universal weapon bonuses. And one of those bonuses that I could use was Corvex's passive, which gives Punchthrough. What I'm going to be showing now is one of the versions of this that I tried that I just immediately discovered to be pretty useless. And that's that the Punchthrough will apply to Tesla Nervos, so Vauban Subsoon. So you can see that if I throw one of these balls like this, right, these balls have Punchthrough. So you can see that when I throw it, it won't actually stop. It'll just go straight through the enemy. And then it'll spawn the actual Tesla orb, and it'll do its normal thing of zapping everybody in range. But the main thing we're going to be looking at here is this Punchthrough passive, right? And just making this apply to things that it probably shouldn't. I actually tried pretty hard to make this do damage way back then. I was like really hoping that I could find a projectile that would work really well with this. And I never really figured it out. And one of the issues with this build in general is that Cyotid also gets Punchthrough, and so if I try to do the grip in some of these locations, you'll see that it'll just go through the ground, and it won't actually even pull them. So I have to like throw it on specific parts of the ground in order for it to actually pull all of the enemies. And then the second thing that I'm doing here is that I'm giving them this orb on their head, and this orb will, it's a bullet attractor, right? So this works like Max Bubble. And so now if you throw it, you can see that we'll do a bunch of hits before the Punchthrough wears off. And this does like a total of 100 damage. Like even if you buffed your strength like quite a bit, there's not really a way to make this do a ton of damage, at least from that part of it, right? Like Tesla Nervos is still a good ability for the most part. You can still use the augment that it has, Tesla Bank, to actually make this do damage. I just kind of wanted to show this mechanic off because it's stupid. But so if you wanted to like fully try to make this do something, what you do is you'd pull all of the enemies together like this. You'd probably use some sort of damage vulnerability or armor strip like this. And then when the bubble nonsense happens, like maybe this can do damage. Not really though. Most of those 970s are just the balls attaching to enemies and killing them. So it's not very good. But if you do enough AoE on targets, eventually they die. So I guess that's cool. This was not explained in any patches recently, which is really surprising to me because I think this buff's actually pretty relevant. They recently fixed how blast procs work with afflictions, like within probably the last patch, if I had to guess. I don't remember this working on the previous patch, but it's possible I missed it. Like I just wasn't paying attention, didn't see it. But blast procs actually work with afflictions now. So I'm going to show you kind of like the end result of what this looks like first, and then we'll kind of go back and explain exactly what's going on here. This is not a build that I was running previously. I mean, you can see that I actually started at 0 combo there, and we actually managed to get all of the kills. Most of that is because the Jack Katag is just a good weapon. If you don't have a Jack Katag already, definitely worth picking up, especially if like you're into the galvanized mods, like you've already gotten to that point. But you can kind of see what I'm running here. So the main thing that's a little special from like what you would see on a normal Katag build is that we're running melee afflictions here. And then it's basically just a pure damage build. The reason that we're not running any elemental damage here is because elemental damage doesn't apply to blast procs. And the blast procs are most of our damage here. They're getting boosted by Elementalist. We're getting like 13 of them at minimum. And then on top of that, the Jack Attack actually has base 100% status chance on Slam. So you don't really even need that much status chance because the procs are basically always going to go off. The other part of this build is that we do have Vulcan Blitz equipped, which is basically Silverback Acid Shells, but for a hammer. So this works exactly the same way that Sobek's Acid Shells does. So it works with like Sarin, for example. Here, I'll show that real quick. So if you were playing Sarin or something, you can kind of see that this is going to do the same thing that it previously did with like Sobek. And so once this guy dies from the hammer explosion, you'll see that these booms will chain just due to the extra toxin. So that's kind of what we're going for at the moment. Is Jack Attack's a good weapon. But the important thing here is that Blast specifically didn't used to work with afflictions. Like this was not a thing. The way this used to work was it actually did 1 damage, very similar to how the on-hit effects I was showing earlier chained. Like these explosions here, where it's doing 30 damage per proc or whatever, that didn't used to do that. It used to do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then like maybe one of the procs would do a little bit of damage because like the first blast proc would still do damage that's getting multiplied by the afflictions hits. So basically a huge buff to blast afflictions. Like it's really, really like actually usable now, which is pretty impressive. Of course, this isn't the best version of this. This is probably what I would recommend. Something like this, or you would run double sacrificial mods on it instead. Something like that would be perfectly fine. The other option for Jack Tag as always is influence. This thing has, like I said, base 100% status chance on slam. If you're not understanding what that means, like if the words that I'm saying are not getting through to your head, what I'm saying is that this number right here, this 25, is 4 times higher on the slam attack. So it's boosted by, like, it's before mods. So like Weeping Wounds at 5x combo is going to give you 200% status chance, just straight up. Every stack of this is exactly what it says. So it's 40% status chance, 40% status chance for every combo multiplier that you have. It's really, really good. It was really good before the afflictions changed. Like, don't get me wrong, like this weapon's just been good for a very long time. But I think that's important to stress here because, like, you know, this is the influence build without any buffs before stack. And you saw the afflictions build earlier before stacks. So this thing is much faster to stack with afflictions because it just does so much upfront damage compared to the influence build. And of course, the influence build is going to be better at the higher end because realistically, like, it doesn't take that much time to get stacks. And then it also has interactions with like Nova's 4 here. So you can see that the explosions from Nova will also proc influence, and it does a whole thing. So Nova's just overpowered. She has been forever. So this is probably a good option that I would recommend is Jack Tag with Nova if you're specifically looking for that interaction. You can go even further with this too. Like, you could run Zada's Whisper and then you could run double Neuromods. So something like this. Probably just some build sort of resembling this. You can get rid of Arachne here. You can get rid of Hotshot here. Replace these with whatever you want. But you can kind of get the idea here, right? Like, the idea is we're doing a lot of damage and it's going to kill the enemy. And because Zada's Whisper will proc on Vulcan Blitz too, the same way that Sobek Acid Shells does, you know, we get 1 kill here. If I can. There we go. It'll kind of do the same chaining behavior that like Sarin will do. So very good weapon. Definitely don't sleep on it if like you haven't played with it before. Okay, so I've showed this weapon off before. That is the Furax Wraith. And I've actually shown it off for the same reason that I'm going to be showing it off now. And that is this mod right here. So Amalgam Furax Body Count, if you've never seen this before, the main reason that people use it is for this part right here, this 45% fire rate. This is a good mod. Just for this alone, this is like a best in slot stat stick for a lot of secondary users. So pretty good. The thing that we're going to be looking at though is not this and not the combo duration, but the third part there, the melee kills, blast, and stagger enemies part. This part sucks. It's really bad. It's like, I'm just going to kill an enemy, probably one with like a little bit lower health. So these guys are like level 74, so they're not real enemies really. At least compared to what a lot of people are used to. But you'll see that once we get a kill here, 1 damage, huge, massive 1 damage. To clarify there too, it wasn't the explosions that were killing anything there, it was the electric dot on them. It's just, it does so many blast procs that you can't actually see that. And the reason it's doing so many blast procs that we can't actually see the electric dot go off is because the 1 damage blast procs from the explosion actually are affected by influence. So melee influence, the thing that spreads status, will take those 5 blast procs and then put them on everybody else. And so, like in this case where we have 20 enemies within 15 meters of each other, it basically will do 5 blast procs times the number of enemies, because all of them get hit by the initial explosion, and then it multiplies that again because melee influence will hit all of them a second time. And so we end up with like close to 4,000 hits that are being applied as blast procs, and then those blast procs will go off and proc a second time. So it's 5 times 20 times 20 times 2. And then you can also add Zada's Whisper on top of that. And because Zada's Whisper will proc from blast procs, you can kind of see where this is going. We're just going to be doing a lot of damage with the thing that does 1 damage. Is this good? No, but it can lag my PC sometimes, which is that's Warframe for you. In all honesty, this probably shouldn't proc off of influence, because like you can see, that's a lot of zeros. And to clarify, that's not actually 0 damage. That is sort of like it's a partial, like it's a fraction, right? The way Warframe rounds things, it'll either round up or down depending on if it's above or below 0.5. So the actual explosion is doing like 0.18 if the blast proc itself is actually doing 1 damage. So this is effectively a lag machine. Is it good? No. Like, what channel do you think you're on? Oh boy, does it exist as a thing that can be equipped. It's just so stupid. Okay, anyways, that's that one. This isn't really a fully thought out build. I just wanted to kind of show off one of the more interesting things I ran into this patch with the Proboscis Cernos, and that is how primary compression interacts with it. If you're not aware, one of the interesting things about the Proboscis Cernos is that it has sort of like 2 parts to its AoE. The first is that it has this chain that it kind of pulls enemies, and then the second part is the actual explosion. But the chain doesn't actually scale with the radius of the AoE. So if you have something like Prime Firestorm in here, this doesn't actually change the range at which the tentacles will drag things. And the reason that's important is because one of the new arcanes that we got actually reduces the radius of the explosion. In return, it'll give you a lot of damage and a good amount of ammo efficiency, but the downside to it is that it makes it a single target thing, right? And Cernos is like one of the only cases where that didn't actually really happen, because the radius of the pull has not changed. Even if you do the zoom in thing, like you can see if you look at my buff bar, when I zoom in, you'll see the buff activates or deactivates. So we're getting 564 damage with this rank 2. And in return, the radius is supposed to be small, right? But you can see that the drag is still happening at almost the exact same rate. And you can also see that the damage gets applied too. So like if I do this again, before it was doing 200-ish damage, now it's doing like 68 on the first hit. So there is an actual use for this, I guess, on this weapon. If you wanted to do an all-out, just the tentacles do damage build, this would be an actual decent option. Again, the tentacles are not most of the damage. Realistically, like I think if you're doing a real build with this, what you would do is you just put Merciless on this, or you'd put something else similar to that. Just some sort of ammo economy would probably be better. And you just rely on the AoE actually killing things. But it is something worth mentioning here because I think it's a little bit special. I think that's about it. I don't really think I have any other things to go over at the moment. Thank you guys for watching. Let's do thank yous just real quick. It's been a while since I've like been online, so I don't even remember where I stopped. But Grim Reaper, Faded, Duty, Citruk again, Faded again, Syrup, Ozenva, Typo, Honk, Faded, Citruk again, Duty again. Thank you guys all for all the gifts and stuff. So really do appreciate it. I've been pretty busy with work and everything. The whole move was pretty stressful, so I'm glad to have moved. I'm glad to have everything all together now. So thank you guys for putting up with me being a bit of a flake. More videos at some point. I'm probably going to, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I don't really have that many immediate video ideas. I think if I run into any interesting builds, I'll probably go over them. There is one build that I'd probably like to shout out here that I've been using quite a bit, just for anybody who is sitting around in listening to the end of this. The operator build, we're using the maximum ammo efficiency. So let me see if I can show it really quick, just for anybody hanging around last second. I think this build is super underrated at the moment. You should probably be running it if you're doing anything resembling, I don't know, anything. I use it literally everywhere. The basic idea is that you get this ammo and fire, like ammo efficiency and fire rate mod equipped. And then you use the FOD scaffold, which is a 5 on your scaffold. And then you use Eternal Logistics, this one right here. And you get 100% ammo efficiency, and you can spam the FOD scaffold at just like every enemy. And it's one of the best clears in the game, like including Warframe weapons and Warframes and stuff. And it also scales with like Duviri stuff. Like let's say you're doing Circuit. All of the buffs that you get in Circuit will apply to your amp. And so you can get 400% fire rate with infinite ammo. And it will actually carry you like better than any actual Warframe weapons. It's really, really good. So definitely worth considering. I'm going to link a video in the description from Fran, who was the person who kind of like got me into using it. Highly recommend it. It's very, 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 very good. I'm not going to show it off here probably because it's a lot to add into this video that's already pretty long. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a good time.